Hi everybody and welcome to Learn Livestreaming Live. I'm John Lacey. I'll be with you for this show as always. Today on the program, we're really doing a creator check-in. I kind of want to check in with people to see how they're feeling, how their content creation is going, what's working well, what maybe isn't working so well. So let me know in the chat. We are going out live to all the various places. So if you are watching live, throw a comment into the chat and that'll help me to make sure that the chat is indeed actually working, which is always encouraging. But today we are going to be doing that. I also want to focus on a couple of bits of news, and I don't usually do a lot of news on this show, but there are a couple of things have popped up this week that have been, I think, worth talking about. So look, we might even get stuck into some of those straight away, but before we do, let's just check this out. Hello to Saeed, who's watching from Germany. Great to have your company today, Saeed. Hope you're doing well. Even if you're not playing games on LinkedIn. I don't do that either. So I must admit that's one of the weirdest things about LinkedIn is the fact that they have so many opportunities and they decided to implement games. But that's a whole other story. So what I do want to do, and I want to hear from the people in the chat a little bit later on. I might even put some comments in the chat. Creator check-in, what's working well. So if you do have any thoughts, you want to share those in the chat, please do so. But before we get there, I do want to talk about some of the things that have cropped up during the week. And let's start with this one because I think it is really quite awesome. I say that I haven't actually used it yet. So I was a little scared actually. A part of me was really tempted to just install it and play with it. But I thought, let's not do that immediately before a live, just in case something breaks. So Elgato have released this Marketplace Connect, which basically connects OBS to the Elgato Marketplace, and you can sort of download scene collections and install them. You don't need to worry about where they're stored on your computer. Elgato's software will apparently take We'll fix that up for you. It'll do all the things. So essentially what they're describing here is that it's basically zero to broadcast ready, because some of the really interesting parts of this is that you'll go into the Elgato Marketplace, you'll find the scene collection you want. Some of these will be some of them will be paid, some of them will be free. Essentially, you'll download them. And the thing is, it also has this setup wizard built into it. So if there's a spot for a camera, it'll actually ask you which device on your computer you want to use as your camera. And I think it's really, it's kind of interesting because, you know, the thing that we always hear about OBS, and I don't really believe it's true, but I hear it all the time, is just that it's too hard and too scary. And I think if we take, you know, building the scene collections and even setting up the camera and make that a little bit more easy for the average person, that might really work out quite well moving forward. So this is elgato.com. You can find the Marketplace Connect for OBS here. The other interesting thing about this, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is that not only can you sort of use theirs, but you can also share your own. And a part of me is wondering if I should actually make the scene collection for what was the video and live streaming show available to everybody, because I kind of feel like this, because I've done a lot of work on it, and all you need to do is sort of grab another, you know, you set up something with Video Ninja or ping.gg and essentially bring your guest in like that, update the Ninja chat, and a lot of things would come in there as well. I probably would want to couple this with a bunch of Stream Deck options and actions, because again, the thing that I kind of forget, and I don't use, it's funny because I actually use this this scene collection for this show still, even though I don't have Sam here right now. But I've got all these different options here. So a part of me is thinking if I could combine those two things and make that available to people, and all they need to do is grab the links from Video Ninja and from Social Stream Ninja. That might be really good, but equally, I don't know if I really want to sort of I don't know. That's something I need to think about. So that's there. But it's interesting that you can export the Maker Scene collection as well. Potentially share that with other people. Potentially sell that on the marketplace. The marketplace is really interesting because a lot of it just started as Stream Deck plugins, but it's become so much more since that time. And you can literally download 3D printable objects to attach to your Elgato gear. So that's been really interesting. But let me check in with the chat because a whole bunch of people are working, have shown up. So that's really awesome. Hello, Frozen Fusion, which I think, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think that might be Ernesto. Hello, Jerry. Thanks for joining us. Great to have your company today. Okay, so Saeed writes, Elgato announced it's sponsoring the OBS project developers of OBS. With the sponsorship, Elgato will help fund new innovations on the open source platform. And he goes on to write that this was the news this week. Not sure what this actually means yet. And the thing is, as much as we talk about OBS Studio as being this open source project, which it is, and I think we need to be honest about that, it is, but it does have corporate sponsors, and even OBS Studio is a registered trademark. So, you know, a lot of these things, I'm just trying to figure out the best way of explaining this, but if we do the screen share again, this is obsproject.com. If we scroll down, a lot of these companies have been sponsors for a really, really long time, for many, many years. YouTube and Logitech and Twitch. And it looks like, I don't know, maybe there we go, there's Elgato. So they're there as well. So, you know, as much as we talk about the open source nature of this, sometimes they do need funds. They need backing. They need somebody to actually pay for developers to do things. So that has been the case for a really long time. I don't know that I don't really perceive any potential problem with any of this. I think it's worked quite well for a number of years. That said, we can just watch this space. But I think in some ways, and because I really only use OBS project, like OBS Studio proper, I don't really have a great understanding of some of the other clones, like the Stream Elements and the OBS, the Streamlabs OBS, I think is what I'm trying to say. You know, and it's done things like this in the past, so it's been quite useful. And Saeed writes, I just realized I never scrolled that far on the page. So yes, they do have, like, and again, like they have even Stream Elements itself is a gold tier sponsor. I don't even know what Overwolf is. I've heard of most of these other companies. But, you know, a lot of this does have sponsorship and has for a number of years. And I don't think we should be scared of that. I think it's going to be okay. So that's a development. And again, I really like Elgato. I think they're a company that have done some really thoughtful things. And I would be so lost without my Stream Deck. It would be ridiculous. And I do have the face cam, I think, and some of the mounts and the lights. I've probably got a whole bunch of things I can't even remember at this point in time, but I don't have a problem with them as a company. But again, you know, things can go wrong. There can be corporate overreach at times. You can go to other open source projects and see the influence that other people have had in other spaces. So I guess it's something to be mindful of, but I wouldn't be too scared of it. I think it'll be okay. All right, and Ernesto's confirming that is indeed him, and I'm getting comments from two different Ernesto accounts at the same time. So, I mean, I don't know where you're watching, but thank you for being here. So I do want to go back to this creator check-in prompt. So what is working well? Because I know a lot of you people in the audience, you do create content, you do share things, and we all work on different things and we share different things. So I'm curious to hear what's working and what's not working well. Ender Trading writes, no more shorts for me, long form only. I'm really curious how you feel about this because I'm pretty much the same. Every now and then I might make a short video, but it's not really my focus. I don't think it's the way I'm building a following is through these random short clips that may, you know, sometimes they pop off, especially on YouTube, and you'll get watch, you know, you'll get views, you'll get watch time and stuff. But I don't know that it's all it's cracked up to be. And Some of our friends are very excited about the prospect of vertical live streams. And admittedly, like I've got a vertical recording of this stream happening right now in the background, courtesy of the Atom Vertical plugin. But I don't, in my heart, I don't know that it's necessarily the future. I think it's a bit of a novelty at the moment. I don't know if it's the place I'm going to hang out anytime soon. But I am really curious to hear what you people think. Saeed writes, I hope we now get some advanced or overdue features for the Stream Deck OBS plugin. I'm curious what kind of features those would be, Saeed. And I guess the other thing too that I forget this sometimes because I invariably, if I'm teaching OBS stuff, I've got a second version of OBS, and there actually is a plugin that will let you wrangle multiple instances of OBS, which is quite interesting. And I've never really played with it too much, but it is something to keep in mind if you are doing something sort of more technical. So Saeed writes, I need to remind myself to upload something on YouTube from time to time. I get the content, maybe just need to edit a little. Yeah, so I mean, that's a perennial issue. And I must admit, that's kind of the reason And every now and then I'll have a very clear idea of a VOD, a video on demand that I want to create, and I do, and it's great. But I guess, you know, sometimes you need to put something in the calendar to say, okay, every Wednesday afternoon between 2 and 3, I will create something here. And I think for me, except for I've had 1 week off from live streaming in about 2+ years. So there's something about the scheduling of that and making yourself accountable and whatnot. So it's, you know, it's something to consider. I guess the other thing is if editing is a stumbling block, and I don't know that it necessarily is for Saeed, but if it is for you, and when I say you, it could be anybody listening, you know, you might want to think about sort of teaming up with somebody that's really good at doing that. So, and Saeed writes the ones Bar Rider offers or multi OBS. Yeah, absolutely. So Ernesto writes, I'm switching back and forth. I like the chat emotes better on Twitch. Okay, so you're watching on Twitch and YouTube, I'm imagining. Okay, cool. All right. I'm just looking at a comment from Tech Troublemaker. And I think there's a typo there, and I just can't quite make sense of it. Okay, so I'm gonna read the second part of this. So you know, just go live and heck with the editing. Yeah, I mean that's always an option. You can definitely do that. And I think the content creation struggle I have sometimes is that I just don't hear from people, and it's just very lonely. So the great thing about doing this live is that I have some of you in the chat right now talking to me directly, which is really awesome. And I guess the thing is, at the end of the day, the thing that I don't think a lot of people appreciate is that going live is just another way of making video content. Okay, cool. Thank you, Roy. So the thing that Roy wrote was the more you plan, the less you have to edit, or just go live and the heck with editing. Okay, cool. I'm with you now. Awesome. It is interesting because I know some people, they literally will just turn on the mic for an hour and just talk, and they'll just try and find 15 minutes of good stuff in there. And that would drive me nuts. I do need a lot of structure. I do need a lot of plan. Sometimes I will literally have scripts that I just read. And I like to think I'm pretty good at that, but you know, that's up to other people to potentially make the judgment about. So Saeed writes, editing is not that hard. I just don't have the motivation to do it. So that is interesting. And I guess the thing that I will pick up from Saeed as well is that, you know, this week, I think he spoke a little bit about being distracted and procrastinating and maybe having shiny object syndrome. He made an overlay for OBS, which is really cool. But he was trying to actually write his newsletter article at the time. And I do notice that it's gone out overnight, Australian time. So he obviously got there in the end, which is really awesome. But, you know, sometimes you just need to follow those whims and play with the things that spark joy. Okay. All right. I think I'll pop into this other piece of news next, and I don't know that this is going to affect too many people here. Although hello to Stefan. In Sweden, late in the conversation, love the stream. It continues to improve, so it's always fun. Awesome. I don't really know what Meld is, actually, Roy. So tell me more. Although actually, it's one of those newer live streaming tools, isn't it? Let me just quickly look that up in the background. I have heard about it, actually. Meld Studio. Okay. That is interesting, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. But before we do, I think I'm going to jump into the Facebook news. And again, I don't know that this is going to affect too many people. I say that it's one of those weird things that we all exist in our own little contexts. And like, I know Saeed spends, I don't know, I want to say 80% of his life in Zoom, and I never use Zoom because it's just not part of my little ecosystem. And it's kind of true of Facebook. Like, I do have a Facebook page. This session is going out live on Facebook. I don't know that anyone watches or cares, but we do need to talk about this just in case it is something that might affect streamers who are watching this. So this is from Facebook.com. Upcoming changes to how live video are stored, and they say upcoming. In reality, they're already in effect. So I'm just going to read what is written here. Starting from February 2025, live broadcasts will be kept on your Facebook page or profile for 30 days after they've been published, during which you can share replays or clips as reels, delete or download the videos. After 30 days, you'll no longer be able to access your broadcast, and it'll automatically be removed from your page or profile and deleted from meta servers. Cut a really, really long story short, if you get an email from Facebook from Meta saying this is happening to your content, you'll have 90 days to sort of go in and retrieve any old recordings. Otherwise, they're sort of gone forever. And I am really curious, like, are you doing anything with Facebook? Because like I said, I barely notice it. I only share this out because Restream makes it easy for me to do so. But I know I often hear about people that are very deeply invested in Facebook, and it feels like, you know, they don't really... They're not particularly big on supporting those small Facebook pages and communities. So, you know, they're sort of doing different things. So Saeed writes, I couldn't care less about anything that happens on or with Facebook, but whatever makes people happy. And Roy says the same. Okay, awesome. And like my feeling is, for the most part, a lot of the people in this audience are probably, like, if they're sharing live to Facebook, they're probably sharing live to other places, including YouTube, where it will be stored for a much longer period of time. So maybe that's something we don't need to worry about. And Tech Troublemaker Roy writes, what is Facebook? Yes, that's the question of the day. Some people are deeply invested in it, though. So, you know, it just depends on what's going on in your world. Let's have a really quick look at this Meld Studio, which Roy sort of suggested. I mean, it's always interesting when new tools become available, but I'm pretty happy with OBS, so I'm probably not going to change, but let's check it out. So they're saying it's 100% free, no watermarks, no limits. And we can see this here. We've got different layers. We've got different scenes. It seems to be very orientated towards a sort of a gaming audience, perhaps. We can live stream, record, create. Built to multi-stream, unlimited destinations, 100% free. Set the scene like never before. They've got the move transition. So again, probably literally built on OBS technology. Rounded corners, post-production effects in real time. So we've got some sound stuff that we can do as well. Look, it's probably quite interesting. It might be a good way of getting people involved in this in the first place. It is available on Windows and Mac by the looks of things. They do recommend Mac OS 12 or newer. And they do have some, Windows 10 or 11, which is fair enough, really. And Saeed asks an interesting question, and I don't know that I know the answer to this one, but does it come with a virtual camera or just streaming? Let's check out the documentation. Let's see if we can find out in real time. Key features, live streaming, multi-streaming, record. I'm not really seeing any reference to a virtual camera, so it's possibly unlikely. And I realize that'll probably limit Saeed's interest in it because a lot of the stuff he does is in Zoom and he kind of needs a virtual camera to make the magic happen. Let's just check out the settings. Yeah, and I must admit, I don't know definitively, but I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't built on OBS technology, because a lot of this stuff looks very, very familiar, although the user interface is a little bit nicer, a little bit newer. So that's kind of up to you. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything about a virtual camera, Saeed, so I'm thinking that's probably unlikely. I guess one thing I should say too about the Elgato Marketplace Connect, it's kind of only for Windows at the moment. So, you know, that's going to limit the joy of our Mac using friends and certainly our Linux friends as well. So just keep that in mind. But it is kind of interesting, and I'm keen to play with it. I'm a little scared to do it on my definitive OBS installation, just in case something does go wrong. But I might see if I can install it to one of my portable versions and see if I can play with that as well. But I guess in some ways this is, I love this because it's trying to make OBS more accessible to the average person. And as much as I can come on here every week and say OBS isn't that scary, it's not that hard, you know, people have different levels of technical capability, and it does come with a learning curve. That's definitely true. There's nothing I can really do to change that. So I do like the idea that, maybe some of these things are a good way of getting people started, because I think that's always worthwhile. I think in light of, StreamYard sort of being bought by Bending Spoons and really increasing their prices quite dramatically, I want to make the jump from that software to something else, smoother, a little bit easier. So yeah, I love the developments. I mean, we'll see how all this plays out in the fullness of time, but right now it's looking really, really good. Okay, so Roy says the internet says Meld does have a virtual camera feature. So I guess, to be honest, it's free. I'm sure it'll take you 5 seconds to install it and have a look, Saeed. So if you do that, let us know how that goes. I might even do it after the show. I might even do it now. Let's do it now. What could possibly go wrong? He says. All right. And I will note that even the installer actually says beta in the title. So it's one of those things that right now it's free. I don't know if it's always going to be free, and I kind of wonder a little bit about the business model of some of those free free pieces of software, because as we noted, even OBS has their corporate sponsors. So, all right. Saeed writes, which tool doesn't come with a learning curve? There is no magic create awesome live stream button in known tool. Yeah, and it's one of those things that I struggle to articulate sometimes, is that you can have really fancy things if you're prepared to accept the defaults and you don't want to change from the defaults. And I think a lot of the browser-based software will give you really fun animations and switching scenes if you're happy with the defaults that they give you. If you want something more custom, then you're going to have to learn, then you're going to have to apply yourself, then maybe you need to actually reach out to somebody that can help you with that stuff if you don't want to learn yourself. But I don't know. I'm forever saying that OBS is not hard or scary, but even, and I shouldn't talk about people that might see this content, but, somebody did come out of the woodwork and said, look, I tried OBS years ago, it was terrible. Is it any better? And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't really know how long ago you tried it, but I don't know the kind of person you are and whether you're the kind of person that wants to invest in learning this tool, or if you really just want to click and go. And I guess that's another sort of fascinating thing to me, is that LinkedIn discontinued their audio room events. And those events, if you'd never experienced them, anyone could basically speak on the virtual stage. They could put their hand up, and whoever's operating that could let them go live, and they could talk about whatever. I think LinkedIn decided there wasn't enough demand for that service, so they discontinued it. And then they did this really odd thing where basically they're just doing LinkedIn Live, so the live stream session. But they're kind of built with all these scene collections where it's just assumed you'll have your camera off and you'll just have an image instead of a camera. So Meld Studio is offering to access my camera. I'm actually going to say no right now because I'm a little scared of what might happen if we do that. But let me check in with the chat because I've been a little bit distracted. Yeah, so Saeed is agreeing with Roy. Sounds like there is that virtual camera in Meld. Saeed writes, just be careful it doesn't install any virtual audio cables and messes your audio up. Yeah, that's always a possibility. Stefan writes, what could possibly go wrong? Famous last sentence. Absolutely. And Roy notes that apparently Meld also has blur options and green screen. Saeed is writing, let me try this live at Stefan. Okay, and Roy writes, I try OBS once a year, so I don't feel like I have my head in the sand. And, you know, we appreciate that. I know you're very invested in that other tool for Mac, which is, it's fine. It's all good. So I have installed Meld. I've got it open. It's on a different screen that I can't quite share, and it's telling me that there's an audio issue. What I'm going to do, I'm going to move it over here. Let's have a play. But again, I'm having a play in the sense that I don't want it to take over my audio or my camera, so I'm going to do neither of those. But let me just share this with you. Okay, so welcome to Meld Studio. Set the scene like never before, and it's sort of explaining all those benefits, live stream to multiple platforms, virtual camera. So there we go, Saeed. It's literally there. It's just not in their documentation. Use Meld's virtual camera to output your scenes to other apps. Brilliant. Smart corner radius, built-in move transition, all-in-one display capture, capture any screen, game, or app window within a single layer, effects presets. That could be fun, or it could be really annoying. You use that stuff with some restraint. We can monitor the audio. We can capture multiple audio sources, Twitch video track, up to 32 input channels, audio effects, and get early access to audio plugins as well. And there's sort of a prompt there to join their Discord. So again, I guess keep in mind that this is literally beta software. So, you know, we need to be a little bit careful, but let's, we've got our scene, we've got our layers. What I'm going to do, I'm going to grab an image from somewhere. I don't know where or what this image will be. In fact, what I might do, let me just go and find the image for this particular live stream video thumbnail. What is this show called? Learn Live Streaming Live. It's a problem with having two shows at the moment is I have to kind of remind myself which one I'm actually doing. So interestingly, Saeed, up here it says outputs virtual camera install. So I need to actually install an extra piece of software to make this happen. Install virtual camera. I have actually used this before. This is all coming back to me now. I remember this. Hopefully that hasn't... okay, so my screen share disappeared for a second because Windows setting was just confirming that it would let me do that, but I think I'm still live. Just let me know in the chat. So that's now installed, I believe. And we've got the virtual camera. Not really seeing a lot of options here. Okay, so we can turn it on. It is complaining about the audio. I haven't shared the audio with the application because I'm a little scared of what it might do. But essentially, you can set this up. You can hit the virtual camera. I'm sure you can go into Zoom or whatever and be good to go. Okay, so Ernesto writes, I'm so glad I'm ambidextrous with PC and M4, Mac M4. Currently using Ecamm for my school projects. Awesome. And that's the thing, like the more you have access to the more software you know how to use, the greater your creative output possibilities. I have no problem with that. And I'm sure Ecamm is a beautiful tool. I don't have a Mac and I kind of don't want to buy one at this point in my life. So, yeah. I'm always trying. I feel like I'm always trying to offer an olive branch to Ecamm people, but a lot of them are just really mean to me, and I'm like, okay, I don't need to hang around and take this abuse, but thanks. All right. I'm not really sure what Saeed was referring to here. Oh, okay. So Roy wrote, I try OBS once a year, so I don't feel like I've got my head in the sand. And Saeed writes, I do the same with broccoli. And yeah, that's the other thing, Ecamm. And again, some of the people in the audience can tell me, but I think the last time I looked at it, it was like over 50 USD per month for Ecamm. And I thought, it's going to cost me a lot of money moving forward. And I don't really monetize any of my content, so I'm not really getting anything back from that. So it is something to certainly keep in mind. All right, so let's go back to playing with Meld Studio for a little bit longer, which totally wasn't even on my agenda for today. Okay, there we go. So if I click on, so the layers are essentially our sources. And again, we've got all these options. We've got the opacity. We've got, I saw blur a second ago, but I can't see it right now because I got distracted. I'm sure I saw it. It's probably staring me in the face somewhere. But we've got the fit mode, so you can fit, fill, stretch. We've got all these filters. Oh, there we go. You can do a 3D filter. That in itself is pretty cool. I like that. So it looks like you can only have one of these filters on at a time by looks of things, but they're certainly fun. You could do a lot with these things. Luminance, Pixel Cam, Red Moon, Smooth, Sepia, Scan Lines, Thermal, which is, wow, that's really something. Threshold, Tritone, don't know what that last one is, TV screen. Okay, that's very blurry. I realize I can probably do this with some of the plugins I've already got in OBS, but that's kind of cool. So those are the presets, and I can go back to none. I can go to the effects, and it looks like I have to add those one at a time. But again, this is sort of the filters that we see in OBS. So we've got things like black and white, brightness and contrast, bulge, which is an interesting sounding one. And if I go to bulge, do I have settings for that? Yeah, I do. Okay. All right, I can take that away. And it looks like you can order these up and actually that's import and export effects, which is interesting too. So threshold, tilt, tritone, Venetian blinds. We do have the chroma key, which is really awesome. Corner pin. Again, I might need to play with some of the settings for that to look like it's doing anything. Oh, there we go. That's sort of really sort of, I don't even know what the word would be for that. Transforming, distorting. That's quite dramatic. But anyway. So we've got those, and you know, we've got the audio mixer. Again, it doesn't have access to my sound right now because I'm a little scared. We've got the different scenes. Okay, I'm gonna level with you. I think this is actually kind of cool. I think this would be really amazing for beginners, especially. So thank you for that, Roy. It is interesting because I've definitely played with this before because that virtual camera thing is very, very familiar to me. All right. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I don't know if I've got a button for that anymore. Maybe I do. Oh, there we go. Like and subscribe. I have to remember to tell people that because if I don't, they don't. Roy writes, I support your OBS endeavors. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm assuming this relates to Ecamm. Ernesto writes, I buy it on Black Friday for the year, 40% off for the year. Yeah, that's a good discount. Roy notes that vMix is also expensive. And Saeed's saying, looks good enough for a casual live stream. And like, hey, this is kind of interesting because I kind of feel like this software might be really good for the kind of thing that you do, Saeed, in terms of like just getting people to play with their virtual camera in Zoom for the facilitation. I imagine, in fact, we'll go back and look at more of the layers and the sources and things that we can incorporate in here as well. Got a whole bunch of emojis from Ernesto. So Tech Troublemaker says you can use scenes to give it lots of variety. Absolutely. And Saeed writes, congratulations on 700 subs, by the way. Yes, thank you. That was something that happened during the week. It's funny, I was sort of sitting on 698 for the longest time. And I know it doesn't really mean that much in the scheme of things, but I sort of gave up at one point and just begged people on social media and got those extra 2. But it looks like I think there's another 4 people since then. So it's really cool. Like, the growth is slow, I'm not going to lie, but it is interesting. But let's, like, I must admit, the plan for this stream was definitely not playing with Meld Studio, but it's kind of, it looks really cool and kind of fun. And Said writes, I will give it a try. A lot of peeps are looking for some simple things for their trainings and workshops. And I guess that's the kind of thing I'm wondering, like, if we go back here, like, what other, and I've done it again, I don't know what it is. Oh, okay. Basically, for those playing at home, what I've done is I've knocked my mouse off my desk. So now I have to go and retrieve it because I can't do a lot. As great as the Stream Deck is, there are lots of things I can't do if I don't physically hold that mouse. So what I might do, let's just go to a promo and I'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, I'm John Lacey, and in Build a Presentation Muscle, I want to talk about finding your voice, refining and sharing your message, using tools and technology to share that message, and looking after yourself as a creator.
Okay, the mouse has been retrieved. I've actually got this little sliding tray that comes out from underneath the desk, and I've reached a point now where I wonder if it needs sides to prevent me from throwing my mouse, because I've done that so many times in the last couple of weeks. It's kind of ridiculous, but I've retrieved it now, so we're all good. So let's check out the layers. So we're playing with Meld Studio. It is currently in beta, but it is free, so that's awesome. We've got our video device, we've got our display capture, we've got our media source, image, browser, duplicator, which is interesting. Must be like a source clone. We've got our text. We've got Markdown, which is really interesting. I've never seen that. We've got a rectangle, which I'm assuming is literally just drawing a rectangle. We've got widgets, so we've got the combo widget and we've got the spotlight. So that's interesting. I'm kind of intrigued by, let's look at the media sources first. And it's just going to pop me into this, which I can potentially go and find a file. Assuming it hasn't crashed because it's not terribly responsive right now. We might try that again. Media source. Let me just go find something. Let's go into DaVinci. Let's try this one. So again, we've actually we've got this here. We've got the video, so we can add an audio track for the source. We can loop the playback. We can play when the scene becomes active. We can change the media. So if we decide we want to use something else, we can do that as well. We can apply all these effects, which I don't know if I'd really want them on my videos, but it's kind of interesting that you can. So we've got the presets and we can add the other effects as well. Okay, that's interesting. So when you click on one of these presets, it'll actually populate all the effects for that preset. So you can come in and potentially customize these, which is really, really interesting, really thoughtful. So I guess what I'm seeing here is we've got video, maybe we've got audio. I'm not really sure. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm gonna hide that one. No, actually that's the wrong one. So again, there's a little eye icon and it is very small here. But I can sort of toggle the visibility like that, which is interesting. But I don't know. I mean, I'm curious, say, for the people that you work with, like, do they, because my instinct is they're probably working with a lot of slides. And I know how we all feel about death by PowerPoint, but I'm just curious because that's the one thing I'm not really seeing a lot of options for. But maybe it is buried in there somewhere. Maybe I can go and get a widget for that kind of thing. But we've got our image, we've got the display capture. So I guess the display capture might be interesting. So we can share that. We can select our windows or our applications. And again, maybe this is the solution. Maybe you'd actually share something in PowerPoint and actually bring it in like this. Screen sharing is a must, Saeed writes. In fact, what I might do, this is like the least interesting thing about my setup, but I'll bring it in because it won't break anything else. I'm going to bring in the little field monitor I have underneath the prompter, which at the moment literally just has a clock on it to let me know how I'm going for time. And I mean, again, I can change the color of that, which is, I don't know. I don't know why I'm so entertained by that today, but something about it is so delightful. And we've got the ability to add the audio track for the source if appropriate. I don't think it would make sense here, but who knows? We can capture the mouse. So if I leave that on and I actually move the mouse to where this is, you can see the mouse. Yeah, so I mean, it strikes me as something that's actually probably pretty simple for newbies, and I think it probably is something to explore. So again, thank you, Roy, for reminding me of that one, because I'm sure I played with it in the past, but I haven't looked at it in forever. All right, so everyone's having a well-deserved Ern's laugh at my throwing things off the desk. Said writes, bumping your mouse off the desk is the new bumping your mic. Absolutely. Ernesto says, mouse rescued, on with the show. And said screen sharing is a must. Absolutely. So we can do that. Roy says, I'm going to play with it and maybe do a video on it. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. And a part of me, I don't know if I should necessarily do it live, but a part of me would be really tempted to maybe do a show on this, because it is interesting. And I'm such an OBS purist these days. Like, I don't even play with like Restream Studio or anything anymore, but it is interesting, and it looks very simple. And I think especially the fact that we've got the virtual camera in here, it could be the thing where you just incorporate some of your branding. You have some images, you have some videos. I guess that's the other thing I wondered though, was with the virtual camera, is it going to include audio? Because virtual cameras don't usually do that, and then at that point you kind of need to do something else. And I'm really tempted to try and open Zoom and play with this in real time, but I'm gonna resist that urge. All right, so I guess like we have been talking about tools generally, and again, getting back to our creator check-in, like what tools are you using, and are you enjoying them, or are you tempted to go and play with something else? Obviously, we've been looking at Meld Studio, so and it looks fun. I think a lot of people could do this. Said writes, the good thing about testing new tools is you realize that you love what you love about your go-to tool. Absolutely. And I think like sometimes, and it's weird, this has been a theme for the entire week for me, but sometimes when you have a hammer, everything can look like a nail. And as much as I love OBS, I know it's not really for everybody. I kind of feel like some people definitely need something else, something easier. But I love that this sort of opens the possibility, because even if you're just recording a video for YouTube, you can create a couple of scenes. You can bring in your camera and your audio. No, Roy, no, please don't feel that way. He writes, wasn't trying to sabotage the show. No, this is awesome. Thank you for sharing. To be honest, this show, normally I'd like to be more structured than this, but this week has been really exhausting. And I don't know, like I am so tired, and I used to do so much more content than I do these days. If I can schedule this stream, do this stream, and write a newsletter on LinkedIn about it, that's really as much as I can do at the moment. I'm really, really tired, and I don't really understand why, and it's a little ominous and a little scary. And I guess that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this, because I feel like a lot of people, especially when you're new and there's so much novelty to a lot of this stuff, you're like, I'm going to release a 300 episode series, a show every single day. I'm going to post it to 500 different social media platforms. And I think, you know, that's a great recipe for burnout and disaster. Like, you will just reach a point where you're like, never again. And the thing that I'm always looking for, and in part because I'm such a creature of habit, is just, you know, what can I do on a weekly basis that isn't too big a lift, that I can do consistently, because as much as that's become a bit of a buzzword, I think honestly the way you build an audience is to show up at roughly the same time, week in, week out, as much as is humanly possible. Said writes, competition is always great. It forces to innovate. Absolutely. Ernesto writes, I've seen some streamers do amazing things with OBS using TTS connected to 11 Labs for different voices, 3D characters with StreamingBot, crazy. Yeah, we have some friends that do sort of like the faceless streaming stuff, which is really interesting. It's not something that I think I would ever personally do, but it is really cool. I must admit, and this is a side rant, but I listen to a lot of podcasts, and every now and then somebody will do an entire podcast with one of those 11 Labs voices, or just a generated computer voice, and I don't love that. I really want to have a relationship with a real human being, and I think if you've been here for a hot second, you kind of know my relationship with generative AI is pretty fraught at the best of times. I do not like it. I do not encourage you to use it. But it is out there and people are happy to play, and you can do all kinds of stuff. And I think that's the thing that I always come back to, is that even though OBS is this rocket ship, most of us don't need a rocket ship. Most of us will need to add our camera, our audio, some color, some images, and we're pretty much good to go. And at that point, as nerdy as I am, and as much as I love exploring the tech, I think for most people, you just need some sort of mechanism to share your message, whatever that happens to be. All right. And Said writes, faceless and an AI voice, I don't see the point. Yeah. I mean, it's very easy to generate that kind of content. I just don't know that it's particularly worthwhile. But again, that's a personal judgment. You do you. And I don't really want to... I don't want to fight with people about AI or anything, really. Like, you've got to decide what's appropriate for you. But I'm kind of so tired of every time I look at a podcast or a blog post or a video, like, everyone is so proud of the fact that they wrote one sentence into ChatGPT and copied and pasted something. And I don't think it makes you as clever as a lot of people like to imagine it does. I think it's pretty lazy. It's pretty uninteresting content. I know people invariably push back and say, oh, it's actually quite good. And I kind of worry that those people say that haven't read a good piece of writing. Because it really isn't. It really isn't that exciting. I'd much rather you do one thing yourself as a real human being, even if that's like a 60-second video, than sort of just churn out all this stuff. Because, again, and I don't like talking about people who might see this content, but I think we all know at least one or two people that'll do a live stream and they will generate 100 clips from it, and their AI will spin up an article about it, and it's just... all of it is just so soulless and so boring. I just don't get it. And Ernesto writes on Twitch, they donate bits to use TTS and get to choose which voice to use their question. And that's the thing, like, as much as I don't love the generative audio of that, there are some accessibility implications. There are just some things that are fun about that. And I guess, like, Ninja Chat, I've never really played with this, but Ninja Chat does actually have an option that will text to speech. It'll start reading incoming messages out loud with text to speech. I've never done that because I think I would personally find that distracting, but I think some of us do know people that aren't good readers, and it would be much better for them to hear even a computer generated voice read that question out than for them to try and do that in real time. So, I mean, it's we have all these options, and you just need to decide what's appropriate for you. And again, like I said, my personal thing is I don't like to draw attention to things I don't believe in. It's just that I'm a grumpy old man, and periodically I will, have to yell at the sky about the things that annoy me because my back hurts and I haven't had enough coffee or enough sleep. And that's just who I am, I'm afraid. Roy writes, my AI persona is offended. Haha. Yeah. I guess, circling back to the topic of today, though, what actually are your content goals? Like, what are you hoping to do in the near future? Because there are a number of things that I'm really interested in exploring, and in some cases I've started these things, but I just haven't had a chance to revisit them. One of those was actually going to be writing a book about using OBS for the virtual camera aspect predominantly, but sort of branding your camera and, you know, being good to go from there. But the thing is, like, I've tried to explain how awesome I think this is and how useful it could potentially be for people, especially on LinkedIn. And I don't feel like I'm winning that battle. And sort of conversely, if I just go onto YouTube and write OBS Studio and then a keyword, people on YouTube who are searching for this content already know what it is. And I don't need to try to convince them of the benefits of it or the merits of it, or, you know, that it's worthwhile learning. So I'm sort of still not sure if that is a worthwhile activity for me to do. This is the most random thing ever, but I kind of just flicked back to the Restream chat, and I can sort of see larger versions of some of those emojis that Ernesto was using, and they're actually quite funny. Yeah, that's awesome. So Tech Troublemaker writes, I'm going to do more recorded software tutorials. I think that's really cool. There's so much that people don't know that they don't know, and little things that make life easier. Saeed writes, I realized when I shared something on YouTube, people will actually watch it, and maybe some new subs. Sounds like a no-brainer. And I think, like, you know, as much as I sort of criticize that generating 100 clips from a live stream thing, if they're not interesting content to start with, it's not really going to help. But I think sometimes we can really be stuck in our heads about what is quote unquote YouTube ready and what's worth sharing. And often we're so close to our own content and our own ways of working that we don't realize that something could be quite useful to other people. Like, we kind of need to divorce ourselves from those judgments at times and just put something out, just see if anyone's interested. And, you know, if nobody is, and like I've got videos on my channel that I think have 1 or 2 views, and sometimes things just don't work out. And you're like, okay, well, that was a learning experience. So, you know, I think it's, and I guess the other part of that is sometimes we can be so perfectionistic that, you know, we can take a year to make one piece of content, and it might be really good content. And like, don't get me wrong, that might be worthwhile. But I think in a lot of ways, we just need to have more touch points with our audience. And I think sometimes that does mean just putting out something that maybe isn't as polished. And I say that as the biggest control freak in the world. And it's something I definitely struggle with. But I think sometimes you need to just put something out just so people remember who you are and, you know, remember why they connected with you in the first place. Again, I'm sure we've all had that experience where we might have signed up for an email newsletter and they've sent nothing. And then like 5 years later, we get this email and we don't know who they are or why we're on their list. And we're not sure if it's spam or if it's a real thing. And I think sometimes you just got to put yourself out there a little bit more. Okay, so Ernesto writes, I'm working on a documentary for older generation balancing the school, work, parenting life for Arizona State University. I'm a beginner, but it's my final project for the semester. I love OBS, vMix, and Ecamm, different tools that do similar things. Awesome. I'd be really interested to watch that one when it's done. That sounds really cool. All right, so I guess as we begin to wrap up the show, I just want to remind you that the Learn live streaming newsletter is a thing. And let me just throw this in, mix it up so you can have the link to this one. Learn live streaming newsletter. Essentially, you can go to johnlacey.com/news, but I'll put that up in a second. So we can do this. All right, so this is on LinkedIn. So if you don't use LinkedIn, maybe this isn't for you. But essentially, I put out articles periodically, and you can learn more about the things that we spoke about earlier today about the Elgato Market Connect for OBS. Again, keep in mind that this is currently Windows only, but I'm assuming that's going to change. The Facebook video policy, there's nothing you can do, but if you've got stuff that you want to keep forever, make sure you download it in the next 90 days. Somebody did actually ask about exporting images from LibreOffice Impress, which is their version of PowerPoint, and I kind of sussed out a way of doing that. So essentially, and I just want to point out this comment here from our good friend Garen Parkins, who writes, "I'm beyond excited about Elgato Marketplace Connect for OBS," because he kind of, his company makes scene collections for clients that want to run their own shows and podcasts and things. So I think especially the wizard aspect of that would be amazing for him. So, yep. All right. You can definitely check that out. But otherwise, have a great week. Again, subscribe if you happen to be watching this in a place that you can do that. Let me hit this magical button one more time. If I remember which magical button it is, that'll be this one here. Like and subscribe. Have a great week. Again, I'll be back next week with OBS Obsessed, which is the OBS specific show. We'll dig into fun features over there. But have a great week. Look after yourself. Conserve that energy. And just be okay with the choices that you make as a creator. Because I think the FOMO, the second guessing, it's just exhausting. Just try to avoid that at all costs. All right. And Roy writes, great show. Thanks. All right. Take care, everybody. And I will talk to you again very, very soon.